This is the Zac Anesbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast clip, we have the marketing coordinator for postgraduate coursework at the University of Adelaide, Danielle Talbot. You've done your undergraduate degree and you've done research as well, academic research, and now you're in industry. Have you seen any, what are the similarities and differences between the two in terms of, what you learn and then what you practiced and vice versa?
Yeah, I think at uni you're immersed in marketing. As a marketing student, you're immersed in it. That's what you're doing essentially full time, perhaps. If you have, you might have a part-time role or whatever it is. But I think you kind of go out into the world thinking that everybody cares about what you do. I don't know if that's the case to everyone, but I would say that that's not the case. People don't really care. And sometimes, unfortunately, marketing can be the first kind of department that is cut from the budget sometimes. So I think as the new generation of marketers are coming through, I think we have, the job to be done is also demonstrating our value, demonstrating our kind of strategic kind of purpose and how we play a bigger role in organizations beyond just here we put an ad on a billboard that people drive past sometimes. Mm-hmm. It's so much more important than that. And it's so, I guess the scope of what we do is a lot bigger. So I would say that is one thing. But I guess the difference between kind of research and marketing, I don't know. I guess just being able to translate the research and using it in your day-to-day role. And sometimes I guess people don't value research. So I think coming from a background in market research, I'm fortunate now that I work within a team where people have similar backgrounds. They really, really value having market research and using that research to understand our audiences, which is what I spoke to before. But I know that there are some kind of bad stories where you go out into a marketing role and the company has no understanding of their audiences. They have no understanding of these simple marketing laws and things like that we learn at uni. So I think just being the custodians of that sort of thing and having the background that you all have, and really fortunate to have learned. Lots of other marketers and marketing graduates around the world haven't been able to learn the things that you learn. So being able to take that out into industry, I think, is something amazing that you can actually do and contribute to a bigger piece of the company's kind of strategy beyond just marketing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess because you did come from that background, did you have challenges or how did you find the best way about, demonstrating the value of your role as a marketer and marketing as a whole, and making sure that the decisions that are made in that realm are not seen as, artsy fartsy or something like that, but actually have some sort of scientific evidence behind them? Was that a challenge, or was that something that you were quite good at?
I think having the background that I had, it was a lot easier to do so. So going out there and being able to talk strategically from, people out there were probably seeing me as a young graduate, but the way that I could actually express myself as a marketer and talking about things that people at really senior kind of brand and marketing management roles understand, I think that put me in a really good position. And being able to go to senior stakeholders and say, hey, our marketing decisions are actually backed by evidence. We've got the data, we've got the research to back up our decisions. You can't really go wrong in that respect.
Yeah. So having those fundamental evidence behind you gives you, I guess, the confidence and I guess your own abilities anyway to put forward a strong case.
Yeah.
It's good insights. Make sure you have the evidence because, very, very good. So is there any campaigns or anything that you've run or any sort of, that you think are something you're particularly proud of that you would like to run us through?
So I guess I lead the Adelaide Business School marketing campaigns within our team with my manager. So I guess we have worked on understanding our audiences. We've got the research, as I mentioned. We've got our strategy. All of our decision making is kind of backed by our evidence. And thinking about our messaging, our creative. So I guess our focus for this year for the Adelaide Business School was maintaining that kind of, I guess, always on approach, and really trying to build up the associations between the University of Adelaide and having a really great business school, and it's the place to study, essentially. So we developed sort of an integrated approach across lots of different channels. So it was a multi-channel campaign. And really focusing on our key messages, which is sort of creating and accepting your next challenge of your career, and focusing on your next career move with the Adelaide Business School. So we actually shared the story of one of our incredible First Nations alumnus, David Mallet. So he is the owner of an Indigenous owned and run business, Yanun Project Services. So we kind of made him the face of the University of Adelaide's MBA and the Adelaide Business School's MBA in 2023. So really just sharing his incredible story. And it's a story that really resonated with audiences, and we saw such great engagement. So I guess just focusing on telling those authentic stories has been kind of crucial for us, and is something that, I think any marketer should really focus on, that sort of authenticity piece, rather than just making it about what you think the audience wants to see.
Yeah. So you had obviously a really great piece of creative by like an inspiring story from what seems like quite an aspirational man, that would, hopefully, wonderful, wonderful story. In terms of your media, you mentioned like a multi sort of channel approach. So like social media or television or radio or print or your favorite topic, out of home.
Yes, it was definitely...
Was this the season 6 of Yeezy campaign for the Adelaide Business School?
We did feature the brand on some out-of-home spots, which for me, of course, was exciting. Running across social media. So, Meta, LinkedIn, YouTube, print, search, of course, as well, display, Spotify. So all those different channels. So having that really integrated marketing kind of approach. And working at a brand, I guess, where you do have the larger budgets as opposed to working in that kind of startup environment. That was really great opportunity. Campaign work is really fun. And luckily I've always had an interest in it. So I guess, I think as well, it's important to remember that you're thinking, again, back to that strategy piece. Campaigns are just a tactic that you're kind of pulling and using to achieve your objectives and your strategic kind of objectives as well. So,
very, very cool. So I've always so I grew up with 2 older sisters, for those of you who 3 older sisters actually. So for those of you who are wondering why I'm telling you this, it seems like a weird detail, but I used to always grow up, I'm the youngest, and so I used to always grow up thinking, I can learn a lot from their successes, but I learned a hell of a lot more by watching what they did wrong. What did they get in trouble for? Okay, I'm not going to do that. But then I've applied that concept to, I guess, life as well. Like what have I seen other people do around me in my career that have done exceptionally well? And the things that I've liked and I thought could adapt to me, I've sort of tried to borrow people's techniques of their presentation style or different ways that they teach people or the way that they write or research or whatever it happens to be. I try to emulate those things at the same time as trying to avoid, I think, their own pitfalls, which I'm sure people do for me, and learning from what they potentially haven't done well. Is there things that you're obviously very successful in everything you've done from your education through to your career now, which is still at the very beginning of it. But is there anything that you potentially would look back on and say, I wish I had done that differently? And something you've probably learned from yourself, but helping us to learn ourselves
Yeah, I think something that I have noticed across many of my peers and things like that as well. Sometimes there's an expectation that marketing and advertising can work magic, I guess.
Okay.
And it can sometimes, but sometimes you can't just put money behind something and behind a campaign and expect to work miracles, I guess. So I think something to learn from, I guess, is just, again, having that strategic mindset and remembering that you have different tactics to pull, but it all should contribute to one overarching kind of objective and goal for the organization or for your marketing team or for your product or whatever it is. So I think, getting all of your stakeholders together and working as a team and contributing to that one kind of goal, whether that be to grow market share or it's to build up a better physical presence or it's to get into more stores or whatever it is, I think it's just really important to have everyone working towards that one common goal. And as well, of course, having those SMART objectives. So making sure that they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, they're time bound. I think that's something that you learn in undergrad as well. But sometimes people forget that as you're working in industry and you've worked thousands of campaigns and things like that. So I think just, making sure that you actually carry those fundamentals is super important.
That's really funny you should say that because, you teach this acronym to students, and I think you touch on it in Marketing Principles, which is our first semester course. But we also spend quite a bit of time on it in Essentials of Marketing Planning, which is the marketing strategy course in their third year. And, so you kind of everyone's like, oh yeah, it sounds very obvious, right? But, and I think the acronym's wonderful because it's easy to remember But remembering to put it in place in industry sounds like a very important lesson to learn. Is there anything else that you thought that would be relevant that you'd want to share to the audience, or?
Yeah, I guess something that I guess a lot of undergrads would be across is TikTok, and that kind of the way that content has changed over the years and how we consume content. I think there's obviously more channels, there's more ways to engage our audiences, and there are always better opportunities for a delivery of a campaign, whether that be through better use of distinctive assets or it's a clearer message or whatever it is. But I think just having an understanding of your audience and understanding the customer journey, I think is a really important thing. And understanding what different touch points you have with the customer along their path to purchase. And I think something to remember in any role is just how you can actually demonstrate value to your potential buyers. So whether that is to the mass market, which is, building out that mental and physical availability, of course. But, as people are ready to buy your brand and are actually searching for you or coming across your brand, how are you actually demonstrating value to them, I think is really important. So I think a big learning for me is just how important, I guess, user-generated content and that lo-fi content has become. I think especially if you are kind of targeting those younger audiences, it's just, these are just, I guess, approaches to marketing. Again, so tactically you're thinking about how you can leverage authenticity, engagement, and I guess the power of consumers as well and putting your product into their hands. So I think TikTok and those sorts of channels is just such an interesting new kind of form of advertising where you can, brands can create quite low quality, I guess, content, whether it's behind the scenes sort of content or it's just a user using the product in a really authentic way, and then combining that with quite polished assets. I think that is something that people can really have in the forefront of their mind when they're trying to build up brands, I guess, in the long term and the short term.
Very, very cool.
Hey guys, it's Zac Anesbury here with just a couple of quick reminders. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are plenty more interviews to come with some of the world's leading marketing academics and practitioners. You do not want to miss these. In the meantime, if you're looking for another way to connect, then follow me on Twitter at Zac Anesbury. That is ZACANESBURY. For my take on the marketing issues of the day.
That was the Zac Anesbury Show.